Now that Iron Lung has mostly finished its theatrical run, the no spoiler request from Markiplier has been lifted. So, let's get to talking about what exactly transpired in this very polarizing movie. This video is meant to be a follow-up to my last one, so in case you haven't seen that one yet, you can click the card on screen to watch it here. If you have anything you like to say, whether it be something you agree with me on, something you disagree with me on, or some insight for something I may have forgotten, let me know in the comments as we go along this journey. Let's figure out Iron Lung's movie together. One last little thing is I'd like to preface that Marcus asked for no clips of the movie outside of official promotion to be used, but we can use screenshots from the film. Now, for the meat of the video. First, we gotta get one big question out of the way. Is the movie canon to the game? The answer, kind of. In an interview with Slasher Radio, Mark mentions the film went into production at the end of February 2023 and wrapped production around the beginning of April of 2023. The reason I bring this up is because in David Szymanski's official Discord server, who is the guy that made the game the movie is based on, he mentioned that for the time being, the film and the game are separate canons. This is because the movie diverges from the game in a few ways. Then, a few days later, he went on to elaborate that the movie is a different canon because it does things that he isn't sure if he wants canon for potential sequel games. Obviously, this was nearly 3 years ago, so who knows if this is still the case. I was going to reach out to David in the Discord server, like I did in the last video, but since the movie came out, the members in the Discord have quadrupled, so I don't really want to bug him there. I did send him an email, but I think it's also the case there that he's getting slammed, so he's yet to reply. However, in an interview with IGN released on January 29th of this year, Markiplier did mention this.
He's already said, and he's perfectly okay with them kind of the game having a different canon than the movie and them kind of existing side by side, and they're not direct relations. So
he then goes on to say that this movie is an adaptation that expands upon the narrative and lore of the game into a different direction that would be as in line with the game as possible. So while they have similar story beats and similar universes, the Iron Lung game and the Iron Lung movie are two separate stories. For example, the frog and the dragon from the game are not present in the movie, as confirmed by David that it's a different beast. In that case, what else does the movie do differently? To our knowledge, the differences for the game and the movie start a bit before the movie even starts. Eden and Filament Station are both respectfully given more characterization than they are before. Eden's identity of having the last trees is catapulted into them being kind of a tree-worshipping cult. At some point, the trees on Eden completely died, as confirmed by Simon. They seem to be under the belief that soil made from the remains of Eden civilians, after they die, will be enough to grow a new tree on the station. That's why the sapling Simon finds in the SM-13 is such a big deal to him, because for all we know, that sapling he finds is the last one for any tree in the universe. The attack on Filament Station, as I'm sure you know, has much more dire implications in the movie. In the game, it's kind of just mentioned that Filament Station isn't habitable anymore, while in the movie, Ava outright says Simon destroyed Filament Station, and later he says it's gone when speaking with the fish. So it sounds like it's still there, just unlivable in the game, and it sounds like it actually completely exploded in the movie canon. One of the convicts captured is Simon, commonly referred to as the Butcher. He gained this nickname because of how many people he'd killed in conflicts between Eden and the COI. Once captured, he is offered his freedom through the Convict Realization Program by Ava. Basically, he has to go down in the ocean of AT5 and photograph what he finds. It's kind of just the plot of the game Iron Lung, but this characterization is pretty distinct in comparison to the game. We go from an unnamed convict who could have just done practically anything to end up in this situation, maybe even been a member of the Consolidation of Iron, to a confirmed mass murderer from the Eden Station. While the COI thinks he's a monster, Simon believes he was just doing the best for the interests of everyone he cares about. It is a great way to establish a pretty morally gray and complex character for us to follow, and is likely why the deity in the Blood Ocean takes so much interest in him. One thing I'd like to point out is that, unlike the sub from the game, the one in the movie seems to be tethered to a space station above the Blood Ocean. We can see the strings attached to the submarine in an official poster, which we know is official because it's also on Mark's channel. This is how they're able to pull him up out of the ocean and set him back down into it. Something very interesting in the beginning parts of the movie is when Simon is being put into the Blood Ocean, he asks Ava, "Hey, are you hearing this?" The sound he's referring to sounds a lot like a constant beating, similar to a heartbeat. Later on, the floor itself is confirmed to be moving on AT5. The reason I point this out is that there are some implications that AT5 is actually alive to some degree in the movie. The floor of the moon isn't solid, and it's instead a layer of congealed blood and gases that move around periodically. The moon seems to have a heartbeat of some kind. The tunnels Simon later gets trapped in appear like they could be intestines. And while Simon is down in the depths of the blood, he asks why it's so hot down here. Well, in the human body, to keep blood in its consistent liquid state, it hovers at around 98 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 36 to 40 degrees Celsius. Since it is warm, this is how the blood on AT5 stays in its liquid state, and again nods to the moon actually being alive. When Simon is brought up after finding the skeleton of something in the depths, we learn that the camera is an extremely strong X-ray. Whenever Simon takes a photo, it emits a ton of radiation for it to take clear and concise photos in the blood. This is a very interesting explanation for how the camera works, since we never got one in the game. I'm not sure if it's synonymous with how the game's camera functions, since in the game we clearly see the two fish and not their skeletons. Regardless, it does give a somewhat scary interpretation in the film that the skeleton Simon saw might not have just been a skeleton, although this is very quickly debunked, as the only thing alive in the blood ocean for the movie is this fish, funnily named Elli by the official artist of the fish. More on that later, because there's actually probably a reason for it being named Elli. The point here is, though, that the frog and dragon from the game and Elli in the movie are all too thick-skinned to have their skeletons viewed by the X-ray camera, meaning that everything in the blood ocean that is a skeleton is, in fact, just a skeleton. Instead, I think this is mentioned in the movie because the excessive amount of radiation the camera emits is likely harmful to Simon, thanks to Haunting Concern 791 on the Iron Lung subreddit, as they were able to catch that when Simon was flipping through the manual towards the beginning of the movie, there was a section warning whoever is in the sub to not use the camera too frequently, as it could be harmful. And, as we can see, Simon did not read the manual, blasting the camera as if it was a slot machine. With the oxygen levels going down, him being thrown in an unfamiliar place he can't comprehend, him being exposed to excessive radiation, and him likely experiencing a concussion from being thrown around in the submarine, this is all meant to establish to us that Simon isn't thinking right, and to get us to question what's real and what isn't alongside him. Or it could potentially just show us that no matter what Simon is doing, he is never going to make it out of the SM-13. While he's being set back in position by the space station, he sees what can only be described as a decaying body looking at him from the back of the sub. When he goes back there to confront it, he finds a computer terminal with a note that says to cross the wires. This turns it on, where he hears the note left by the unknown convict in the game as a recording. We learn here that residents of Eden have a very close bond with each other, one that mirrors that of a family, as they all call each other brother. It also lets him know that he is not the first person they've sent down here. However, the biggest thing to take away from the scene is what the previous convict left for him. A capsule of some kind with a sapling in it. Again, this is potentially the last sapling for a tree in the entire universe. He ties it to his left wrist for safekeeping. Interestingly enough, this isn't the only time though that we see the corpse he saw. He later sees it sitting in the chair of his sub, looking back at him. The reason this stands out is because it mirrors the exact movements that the corpse did earlier, hiding behind the corner, while it's sitting where he was and looks at him like how he looked at it earlier. We also get a better look at it this time, and it looks very similar to how Simon does near the end of the movie, even missing its left arm. So that means by all accounts, this must be Simon. It's very clear due to how the corpse looks that Simon's fate was likely predetermined, and its job while he's on the SM-13 is to lead him down the right path to end up where he does at the end of the movie. How this is possible and what this could mean, we'll try to talk about later. After being sent down again and grabbing the skeleton sample by ramming it, Simon's sub is attacked by something and the crew has to break the tethers holding the SM-13 to the space station. He quickly falls unconscious after hitting his head hard, and the COI believes that he's dead. He comes to later with the power out. Simon finds a life jacket, which while used in a gag at the moment, will be important as we find out later on. After turning the power back on, very similar to how it did earlier when the ocean floor was moving. While originally I assumed this ship must be under attack by a creature of some kind, I have since started to think that the SM-13 was on the floor of the moon and the floor began to move. That's why Simon ends up in an unknown part of the map, because the floor of AT5 changed while he was down there and put him somewhere new. Unfortunately for him, the floor shifting breaches the porthole and shoots blood from the ocean into his left eye. While we don't see the effects of this immediately, it's clear as the movie progresses that the blood entering his body is going to alter him, especially when they hit us with a Dutch angle right afterwards. His speakers start to blast, "Hull breach" on repeat, and in a fit of anger he punches it and makes it stop. This moment is important for two reasons. The first is that this is the first time we get to see the real Simon. Most of this movie, he is in denial of who he is, and that is the Butcher. He doesn't want to admit that he's killed so many people and has a potentially violent nature. While him yelling, "shut the fuck up," and punching it is an incredibly funny moment because a lot of us just went, hey, that's just Markiplier. This moment is probably meant to be disturbing because it's the first time we get to see Simon act incredibly violent. And the second reason is the radio, under our assumption, is broken. It does chime whole breach again a little later on, but Simon seems to have busted it up pretty good. To try and treat his wounds, Simon bandages himself up and drinks a tub of isopropyl alcohol, or more commonly known as rubbing alcohol. This is usually meant to help get rid of bacteria and wounds, and it shouldn't be consumed by someone because it is incredibly toxic. According to the Icon Recovery Center, larger ingestions can cause severe toxicity and may require medical emergency. It goes on to list some of the possible symptoms of rubbing alcohol poisoning, which is abdominal pain, vomiting blood, mental confusion and disorientation, depression, and drops in blood pressure. We see 3 of those happen in Iron Lung, and Simon drank quite a bit of rubbing alcohol, so it's safe to say that he's also experiencing alcohol poisoning on top of radiation poisoning, low oxygen, and a potential concussion. Simon is quickly becoming about as unreliable of a narrator as possible. He notices that he's in an unmarked area on the map and begins his way out of it. Very quickly, he comes face to face with the fish we all know, Elli. In case you're confused, again, Elli is the name given to the fish by the creator of its appearance. So, Elli's what I'm going to call it for the rest of this video. Elli's design is very interesting as her appearance is oddly human-like, but this isn't a coincidence. As I hinted at earlier, it is very likely that Elli was actually a human, more specifically, one or multiple members of the SM-8. This in itself is a cool twist on the game, as the SM-8 is purely an Easter egg for the player to find. Now, it plays an important and crucial role in the movie. Later on, we learn that the SM-8 encountered the Void that we see in the game. Of course, in the game, while the Void does sound like it tries to communicate with us, we can't actually interact with it at all. However, for some reason, it is likely that the SM-8 was allowed into the light, as the movie confirms a long-lasting fan theory. The Void is a portal. It's noted through logs by one of the researchers that the light is actually a fragment of the Quiet Rapture. We'll talk more about that later when Simon encounters it, but what you need to know is that the SM-8 was lost after this. The CY did not know where they went or how to rescue them. While they were down here, they found out that not only was the blood in the ocean human, but they could synthesize it into food, although they note in the movie that this should not be possible. While it seems the rest of the crew is reluctant, one of the members of the SM-8 can't stop drinking it. On IMDb, Elli Lovelock, who plays the research lead that drank the blood, also is listed as the speaker, the primary voice of the fish on AT5. Ella Lamont, the research assistant from the SM-8 that tries to stop Elise from drinking the blood, is listed as the Whisper, a voice we can hear occasionally from the fish on AT5. While it is unclear exactly how this transformation happened, these two people, at the bare minimum, became the fish called Elli. This is further confirmed as in the poster for Iron Lung. At the top of the jaw for the fish is a human skeleton transfused with its body, and a clear face above that, suggesting that this is 2 people combined. And, while this one is kind of a long shot, it's very likely that the name from the creator, Elli, is a combination of the 2 actresses that voice the fish, Ella and Elsie. A lot of people in the cast are named simply after themselves, like Jacksepticeye's character is Jack, David Szymanski's character is David, Dave Petit's character is Dave. It wouldn't be impossible or unlikely for them to name the fish after the 2 people who voice it. This is even confirmed by a BTS that Elli Lovelock posted on her Instagram, which was shown to me thanks to Pale in David's official Discord. But Elli the fish recognizes and responds very poorly to finding out that Film and Station was gone, something a member of the COI would do. And later on, when Ava comes down to rescue Simon, Elli both recognizes Ava and apologizes for killing her, which would make sense since the SM-8 was a bunch of scientists from the COI. When Elli apologizes, it is important to note that she doesn't say, "I'm sorry," she says, "We're sorry," again pointing to there being multiple people in this fish. And if for some reason you aren't convinced yet, while I've been writing this video, the official artist for Elli posted a front-facing POV where she had at least 6 human skulls merged into her face. Hello everyone, probably a bit of a jump scare to see me, sorry to interrupt your guys' video, but as of this morning, the 12th of February, Upbeat Cantaloupe from the Iron Lung subreddit actually reached out to the official artist, and shockingly, They just outright confirmed that Elli is a combination of the SM8 crew members. Can't believe they just did that. In fact, they hinted a little bit to them being potentially more than just that. So it's no longer a theory, it's just outright confirmed that Elli is made of people. In fact, they even posted this image showing us that her body is made up of a bunch of human limbs. Yeah, anyways, back to the video, just wanted to quickly correct that. So, yes, what you need to take away from this is that the fish on AT5 was originally various members of the SM8. After a lot of exposure to the blood on AT5, they morphed together and total the SM8, bursting out to swim in the ocean, as when Simon finds it, there is a gigantic hole in the side of it. The lead researcher seems to be the one in control, as she is the one that consumed the most blood. Something that is still super strange to me is that while Simon is down here, he takes a photo of what looks like an eye or an orb of some kind, and he marks it on his map, says fucking aliens, and then continues on with his day. What is this? Obviously it ends up not being important in the greater scheme of things, but it's crazy just how important it looks to serve absolutely zero purpose. Eventually, Simon finds his way out of the deep depths of AT5 and encounters the voice of Elli through the lead researcher of the SM8. While she's speaking, you can hear other voices begin to speak with her, creating a voice overlay-like effect and again confirming this is multiple people. The light, she claims, is either the cause of the Quiet Rapture or a fragment of it. Simon's oxygen hits the lowest level, and after venting to her, she asks, would you give everything just to survive? When Simon says yeah, she tells him to go to the coordinates 116, 520. Two people that have played the game, if the mention of the light didn't cue them in, then the coordinates likely will, as the only thing near this is the void from the game. She tells him that if he goes there, he will live, and they will be free. While Simon is on his way over to the light, Elli echoes probably the most important line in the entire movie. Do you believe in God? An ignorant God sees a sliver of our universe through a pinhole and thinks it understands all that is and all that will be. And it will, because a God makes sense of what it sees despite what it should be. The light. It illuminates, it blinds, it thinks, and therefore we are. I think this line gives us everything, and it's the key we need to understand why the Quiet Rapture happened. A God from another universe decided it wanted to peek into ours and see what was going on. When it does, it's not omnipotent. It has no idea what we are, what we're thinking, or what's actually going on. So it tries to make sense of our world and relate it to the one that it knows. This actually directly mirrors Simon viewing through a porthole in the COI. He was looking in to watch Ava and her crew, and he thought he knew everything about the situation, like his camera. But in turn, he ended up harming all of them and giving them intense radiation poisoning. He just wanted to see outside of the SM-13, but he ended up accidentally harming people. So, if we apply this to the light, this means that the God just wanted to see what was going on in our universe, but in turn, it accidentally harmed people. It caused the Quiet Rapture. The Quiet Rapture was a cosmic event caused by a being in another universe by complete accident. To talk about it more, we're gonna have to keep moving forward in the movie. As he draws closer to it, his ship begins to shake and we hear the sound of the blood boiling. Then Simon takes a photo, making it abundantly clear to us that this light Elli is referring to is the void from the game. What's very interesting is the light in the photograph Simon takes is moving still, despite that not being physically possible. Elli continues to spout some lines that I think could be important. We will see, Simon. We will see the answer together. They're calling us. This is our salvation, our promise. This is when Simon finds out that his speaker has been unplugged the entire time, and whatever this thing was communicating to him straight through his brain. When Simon hesitates to move forward, Elli comes up behind him and pushes the SM8 into the light. Unlike the game, where the void isn't interactable, the light begins to tear through the hull of the ship. Not actually, but it seems to be in like a metaphysical sense, as if it's breaking the walls of the sub down so whatever is in the light can view Simon. A voice is heard, one that isn't Elli or Simon, and it says, I see you. Simon replies back, saying, I see you as well. Then his eye moves to the left to see something staring back at him. It's hard to make out whether this is the eye we'll encounter very soon or if this is the fish. The voice replies back to him, saying either agreed or a creed. It doesn't matter which, because either way, the God in the light sees this as a binding vow to let Simon into its universe. Simon awakes and emerges from blood, blood as far as the eye can see. He is in a world that none of us know or recognize. Elli is behind him and says, "We are one. We are one in the blood. Simon, open your eyes," as she submerges back into the blood. His left arm is being bound down to something underneath the surface, his amulet with the sapling being what's holding him down. Under the surface where the amulet is, we either see an abundance of roots or veins. Voices can be heard as whispers, telling Simon to look. Eventually, the voice that said agreed echoes the following: "Simon, butcher." When he looks to see what is talking to him, all we can make out of it is that it's a giant eye, similar in appearance to either Sauron from Lord of the Rings or a biblically accurate angel. After gazing back at it, he comes back to reality, vomiting up blood. And that pool of blood he vomits, you can see the eye in it, meaning that what he just saw was real and that now it is watching him. There is so much to unpack with this scene alone. Going back to that IGN interview from earlier, Mark mentioned that while David hadn't considered what he wanted the cause of the Quiet Rapture to be, he did know he wanted it to be eldritch or otherworldly in nature. So, between what Elli said about a god viewing the world through a pinhole and the light being a cause for the Quiet Rapture, this is it. The answer to all of our questions. This being, whether a god or just a spectator from another universe, is what caused the Quiet Rapture. In a manner similar to the radiation camera emitting a strong light, it pokes a hole through our reality to view our world and universe through this light, in turn accidentally causing the Quiet Rapture, just like Simon accidentally caused radiation poisoning. For some reason, after looking at Simon, the god labels him as a butcher, obviously nodding to his nickname. This is interesting because it goes back to what we talked about earlier, how Simon is in denial about who he really is. The god makes sense of what it sees, and it sees that Simon is a butcher. Therefore, he is. Speaking of the god making sense of what it sees, this could be why the Quiet Rapture happened, as when the god viewed our universe and saw that our universe was different than its own, it changed it to fit more like its. Regardless, let's take a look at what Elli said. "We are all one in the blood." We know this to be for sure what Elli said because it was actually the slogan on the Iron Lung crew member t-shirts, which were given out to everyone who worked on its production. Coming off of Elli on the crew shirts is what appears to be roots, not too far from the ones we see when Simon looks down to the blood. A lot of people have been quick to point out that it's possible that once interacting with the blood of AT5, you enter a hive mind. Think like Stranger Things with Will Byers, Vecna, and the Demogorgons. In Iron Lung's case, it's the god, Elli, and eventually Simon taps into it after getting blood in his eye. It's a fine interpretation and could very well be true, but I think that the sapling being what holds him down isn't a coincidence. The movie has a lot of layers in it that involve human connection, brotherhood, and family. Everyone on Eden is connected. They are brothers. The COI are a united fleet. If we take the tree sapling as a stand-in for something symbolic, trees have always represented human connection. Think family trees, for example. Tracing back through history is going down the tree, through its branches, and to find the roots of yourself and your origin. We learn that Eden has a motto, that when you die, your body will be the soil for a new tree. While it's more than likely literal that in the movie they're going to use human bodies to try and plant new trees, it's also a metaphor that your life is a building block in the lives of others and future generations. "We are all one in the blood," I think implies that in the end, all humans have something that binds us together like roots and trees. Our blood. Our heritage. That is why when Simon looks down to what's binding him, it's the sapling and likely a bunch of roots or veins. It is an interesting metaphor that can be viewed in many ways. Is Simon bound down by his heritage? When the rapture occurred, did most of humanity fuse together and form this blood? There are so many questions for this scene and so many ideas on what it, the sapling, and the overall picture could mean, but what we know for sure is that this eye is something equivalent to a god. It is not from our universe, and it caused the Quiet Rapture, likely by accident. While Simon is uncertain about himself, this deity sees him for what he is, a butcher. After coming back to, his speaker is somehow repaired again. Or maybe he hallucinated it being broken in the first place. It's hard to say. Through his speaker, he communicates with Ava, who wonders how he's alive. His oxygen should have run out by now, and it's true. His oxygen is still at one light left. It's a miracle he's still alive. We know that he didn't hallucinate the light or his previous expedition, as both the area the light was at and his path to the SMA are marked on the map. He makes an agreement with Ava that in exchange for going back to the SM-8 and recovering its photos and information through the black box recovery program, she will bring him out of the ocean and guarantee his freedom. Their plan is for her to tow Simon out of the blood ocean using their next sub, the SM-14. Ava claims that it has worked before in the past. This recovery, I mean. On his way to the SM-8, he starts tripping balls. That's the best way to describe it. He recalls memories of meeting Ava and a conversation with his father, but he also seems to communicate with the previous convict that was on the SM-13, the one that told him to cross the wires, and someone that is listed as the tow ship pilot on IMDb. This voice says, "On your left," and "They're watching you." When Simon positions his ship to take a photo, he sees the destroyed remains of what looks to be 2 other submarines, meaning that when Ava said they had successfully salvaged a sub from AT-5, it was a lie. They had failed. I think at this moment, Simon realizes that he might not be making it out of the blood ocean again after all. Then he coughs up more blood, hinting to the radiation poisoning finally getting to him. Once he's recovered the SM-8 black box information, the blood that hit across his face earlier seems to scar. In fact, his entire submarine seems to be becoming flesh, oozing blood from every crevice. Even the oxygen levels go up. This means, somehow, his sub is producing oxygen, when that shouldn't be possible. Veins begin to form all over the sub, and we get a really good look at how the submarine looks thanks to some BTS photos from David Szymanski. And from the BTS voiceover, thanks to Elli, we know she says to Simon, "You've changed everything. You've changed the blood. The rocks are alive. Your ship is alive. What did it see in you?" And yeah, Elli was right. Simon's ship is obviously alive, especially when we look at these BTS photos. His skin is changing too, with it becoming discolored, what looks to be tumors or warts forming. Many people thought this was radiation poisoning, but in the BTS photos released by Echo Du Mig, they stated that Simon's skin is infected. So based on the fact that the submarine is alive, his skin is becoming deformed, and later we see the submarine tries to grab hold of him, forming veins on him to try to make him a part of the ship. It's clear that his submarine is alive, and is trying to become one with him. It's very possible this could have been how Elli the fish was created. He finds Ava, and she tells him to grab something from the crawl space and to keep it safe. This thing that she wants him to keep safe is the box with all of the information he just recovered from the SM-8. Ava realizes that her and Simon aren't going to make it out of here. As we talked about earlier, Elli recognizes that this is Ava, and blames Simon for bringing her down. Elli tries to convince Simon to destroy the data, that other people cannot find out about the light unless she deems fit. To further her threat, she's holding Ava's submarine in her teeth. However, Elli doesn't really wait for him to answer and ends up destroying Ava's submarine, and we can hear multiple voices coming from her, blaming Simon and wondering why him. Simon's eye turns red, the eye that was hit with the blood, but he does manage to recover the box, and he ties it to the life vest that he found earlier. I didn't really mention it before because I didn't think it held a lot of importance, but there is a little piece of a vest that he finds in the movie that through a flashback to his younger self we find out was a gift from his mother. And here in this scene, he uses this vest or harness to bind the life jacket and the black box together, saying, "Mom, keep this safe. It's bigger than me." Elli says some more interesting, cryptic shit while he's doing this. "You know this is the only way. You saw the horror. What did it see in you? It saw you, and it will never let you go. It wants you to do this. How can you not see that?" This implies that the god wants Simon to become a part of Elli, or that the god wants Simon to tell the rest of the world about it. And Elli doesn't want that. She bites into his sub, and finally, Simon embraces his true nature, proclaiming, "Fine. You want the butcher," as he takes a hydrant and starts breaking Elli's teeth. He spent the entire movie trying to deny his identity of who he was and who he was raised to be, and in his last moments he finally embraces his true identity. While trying to destroy the SM-13, Elli says, "We are salvation. We can save everyone within us." This is when something very unexpected happens. From the cracks that had formed in the pendant over the course of the movie, blood touches the sapling, causing it to spark. Then, Simon's eyes spark too. From an outside perspective, we see Elli chomp down on the ship, but crumble to pieces as a tree quickly sprouts out of the SM-13. In Simon's dying moments, his body became soil for the tree. He became life in death. He fulfilled Eden's mission and killed Elli along with it. The movie ends with a black box floating on the surface of the blood ocean, being discovered by the COI. This confirms to us that at least to some degree, Simon was not hallucinating and the events of what happened in this movie could be potentially true. With the discovery of the black box, there could be hope for humanity, or it could ultimately doom them to be consumed by the light too. Okay, so let's try and put this all together. In the movie canon, the cause of the Quiet Rapture is a being from another universe. It was just trying to peer into ours, but in turn, it accidentally caused nearly all living things to disappear, along with a lot of the light too. Simon was born and raised on Eden, and watched as the last tree in the universe died. All that was left was a pendant to hold and store the last sapling, to keep it safe. The consolidation of iron discovered blood moons and began expeditions on AT5. While there was potentially no signs of life at first, the crew of the SM-8 discovered the light. The sight of what they found, and upon viewing the god, corrupted and changed some of them forever. The lead assistant began to consume and drink blood, changing her and morphing the crew together into the fish on AT5 that was named Elli. Elli seems to be an observer of the submarines, attacking some of them if they find the truth about the light. Simon was a part of the Battle of 2354, and in the movie canon, this resulted in the destruction of Filament Station. He was enlisted in the Convict Realization Program, being sent into AT5 on the SM-13. Here, things didn't go according to plan, and he loses connection to the COI. After getting blood in his system from the planet, he becomes connected with Elli and can understand her. Simon agrees to give up everything in exchange for being able to live, and this makes him worthy in her eyes, taking him to see the light. Before they enter, she says that he will live and they will be free. Unlike the crew of the SM-8, the light doesn't corrupt Simon. Instead, it helps him realize the nature of himself, and the god uses Simon to let the rest of humanity find out about its existence. As we see his corpse many times in the submarine, his fate seems to be predetermined, and he was always meant to let the truth of AT5 be known to the rest of humanity. In the end, Simon's body creates a tree, which will live on using his body as the soil, and the crew of the SM-8 has finally been freed. There are some things that we have questions about, of course, though. Why did the tree bloom and grow so dramatically? And did it form some kind of connection to Simon based on the sparks in their eyes? What is the true nature of the light and this deity? Why was Simon's sub becoming flesh and wanting him to be a part of it? Is it possible the deity changed our universe to match its own, as we see its world is full of blood? There are other bones in the blood ocean, but what are they from? Were there other people that turned into fish before Elli? Or were these potentially old humans that had been morphed after the events of the Quiet Rapture? Is AT5, the moon itself, actually alive? What exactly is the blood? It is human blood. We know that, but it obviously affects and changes people, so what other properties does it have to it? These are unfortunately things we won't know the answer to, but they are things that we may learn the answer to one day. David Szymanski, in his official Discord server, mentioned that he does want to do a sequel to Iron Lung, but not direct, just something that also takes place in the same universe that he's dubbed the Quiet Rapture Universe. There are, of course, many ways to interpret Iron Lung. We could tackle it from the angle of Christianity again. In the Bible, Simon the Zealot is one of Jesus' 12 apostles. The line from Elli, "We are one in the blood," can be applied to Christianity, as many times in the Bible it links humanity together through our blood. And, of course, again, the god looks like a biblically accurate angel, and in the Bible, it's mentioned Satan was said to present itself to humanity as a being of light. There are an abundance of ways to link it to Christianity. I've seen some people talk about how Iron Lung is a time loop, like this theory from Blushphoria on Reddit, given we see a dead version of Simon 2 separate times on the submarine, and that time seems to act a little differently down in the blood of AT5. I've also seen some people go at the angle that Simon was hallucinating the entire time. He had a concussion. He was experiencing radiation poisoning. He clearly was lacking sleep, and he experienced alcohol poisoning too. He is an unreliable narrator, and it is very unlikely that we could trust him. But at the end of the day, the beauty of this movie is that all of these are true. There is no way we can definitely prove them wrong. Cosmic horror is a genre meant to make us question and question, but the reality of it is that we will never come to the answer. We will never know if what Simon saw was real. We will never know if this is a cosmic version of the Book of Revelation. We will never know the true nature of the light. Instead, we have to hope for the people in this universe, that the black box they discovered at the end of the movie can help them. Unlike the game, which is desolate and is full of so much dread and hopelessness, and ends with our main character dying and getting no answers, there is hope for humanity in the Iron Lung movie. But we unfortunately will never get to see that happen.